Welcome back everyone, it's Charlie. This will be my full Dune Prophecy Episode 2 video. There are a whole bunch of Easter eggs and references, so we'll break it all down. If you're brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the videos. The episode title was Two Wolves, which is a reference to the wolves in the fold, so to speak, like wolves at the door, the double agents they revealed in the episode, Desmond Hart's storyline working against the Bene Gesserit from inside the palace, and the Kieran Atriedes double agent storyline working for the rebellion, also against the Lanstrad and the Emperor. They finally do the actual intro for the episode, the actual opening scene that will play in front of all the episodes. There are a bunch of different things they flash through here. There's a curled hand extending two fingers. It's a Bene Gesserit hand speaking their language. You actually see them doing that throughout the episodes. The bloody blade seems more like a metaphor for the master breeding program created the Kwisatz Haderach, the plotting and scheming they do behind the scenes to orchestrate their grand plan. A lot of backstabbing going on behind the scenes. The blood in the pool seems like a reference to Valia killing Dorothea, which they also pay off in this episode when Lila learns about her mother's secret. The pomegranate in the red dress are for the wedding in the ceremony, now a broken pact because the child is dead. This is meant to be the Imperial throne because that's the grand plan of the Sisterhood right now. They want to gain control of the throne. Within the Dune universe, they also call it the Golden Lion throne. This is the Emperor's fortress. I wouldn't exactly call it a castle, it seems like it's meant to be more defensible if somebody actually physically attacked it. Strand of DNA for their grand breeding program, the Kwisatz Haderach. The planet looks more like Seleucus Secundus just because it's too blue to be Arrakis. These dead animals in the snowy landscape might be a reference to the Harkonnens' homeworld right now, Lankville, the place where they were exiled after the Machine War. We're actually going to travel there next week. This is meant to be the Bene Gesserit's homeworld of Wallach 9 with their fortress. This is Mother Rakella, the founder of the Bene Gesserit Order in the first place. This is older Valia in her office looking down on all the sisters in training. Drop of Blue is part of the Agonies ceremony. In the future, this is eventually the Water of Life, the blue Water of Life, but at this point in the timeline, it might not be that yet. There was actually a time early in the existence of the Bene Gesserit when they used this technique before they learned about the Water of Life. On the show, they're just calling it the Agony, and it's born out of a lot of the techniques in the lore behind the Sorceresses of Rossak, which might be connected to some of the plots that are happening on the show right now, because there are a lot of different references to that particular group of people, the Sorceresses of Rossak, and they are also the progenitors of the Bene Gesserit. So a lot of the Bene Gesserit's abilities, their techniques, the Agony ceremony here comes from things that were started by the Sorceresses of Rossak. They also have telekinetic abilities like we see Desmond Hart using during the episodes, so he also might have a connection to them too. We also get a big tutorial about how this agony process works, unlocking the genetic memory of Reverend Mothers in the Bene Gesserit. This is something that's very common in the future, but in all the movies that we've seen so far, they never get too deeply into the origin of this ceremony or exactly how it works. But what you see in the episode where she basically communicates with all the previous female ancestors in her line is the same idea for Paul Atreides when he takes the Water of Life, only he also, on top of this, also gains access to all the genetic memories and abilities of his male ancestors too. The episode sort of visualizes this process in a way that we've never actually seen in live action before. We see one of them complete the agony test and become a full Bene Gesserit, transforming to the round mouth and teeth of a sandworm, then to the planet Arrakis inside its jaws, because it all goes back to the spice of Arrakis. The spice must flow. The bull here is meant to represent House Atreides. Don't worry, we'll talk about that too, because what Kieran Atreides is doing on the show isn't indicative of the entire House Atreides right now in the timeline. He's meant to be part of this rebellion on his own, so he's sort of rebelling also against his family because he's rebelling against the Lanstrad, and his family is a big part of the Lanstrad. But the big twist of the episode with his character is that you have an Atreides who's acting kind of shady, doing what seems like bad things, even though it seems like he's doing them for good reasons. The sand dunes in the coming storm is another reference to the end of days prophecy, Tirn Arafel, which they also get into later in the episode, the whole reason for Lila taking the agony ceremony. This ring is the one that's worn by the current Mother Superior of the Bene Gesserit, who is now Valia. The poison needle, probably a reference to the Gom Jabbar. Then the camera pulls out, transitioning between the mouth of the sandworm with its teeth, changing to space, then a human eye, which changes it to a blue eye for spice eyes. These also might be a reference to the blue eyes that Rakella saw in space staring back at her during the vision of the prophecy, which might be the eyes of Leto II. He's the person in the books that eventually becomes God Emperor of the universe in the true Kwisatz Haderach when he becomes half Sandworm. Maybe the movies will eventually get to his character down the road, but I don't think Dune Part 3 will totally touch on that. That's like way further in the future. Because I think that Dune Part 3 will be the last one that Denis Villeneuve and Timothee Chalamet do. But they start the episode with the Doctor coming to the Bene Gesserit fortress to examine Kasha's body. They're calling her Nazir, saying that she used to be Bene Gesserit, but then she joined the Imperial Academy to become a doctor. That's what the diamond on her forehead represents. It's just like Dr. Yue's diamond. When they say she traveled from Suk School, that's the main medical school in the Dune universe. But the idea here is that the Bene Gesserit have infiltrated all aspects of society from the top down, from the imperial household to the other great houses on a political level, but also other organizations too. So the idea is that the Sisterhood is everywhere, controlling all aspects of society, all plots, like everything that everybody does on a shady level, somehow the Bene Gesserit are connected to it. There are a couple references to that later in the episode too, with the rebellion plotline and the fact that the Bene Gesserit are also behind that too. We get a look at the Sisterhood's interior labs here, this medical bay. This is a huge contrast to the way they portray most technology in the movies. And remember, the movies take place 10,000 years in the future from where we are right now. So it's almost like technology now, 10,000 years ago, seems more advanced than technology in the future. When she says no accelerant was used to make Kasha burn, that means that she was just burned from inside her body, which is where we get to telekinetic powers. She says she was burned from inside her meridian network. That isn't a medical term in real life, and it's not really a term, I think, from the Dune universe either, so I think it just meant to be her brain. But like I said, I think that Desmond Hart is using telekinetic powers to do that, like the Sorceresses of Rossak, which means he might have some connection to them because they very definitely have a connection to the Bene Gesserit. There are actually a couple organizations that really hate the Bene Gesserit inside the Dune universe. Mother Rakella, who founded the Bene Gesserit, actually came from the Rossak sorceresses. Like, she learned from them. She didn't come from their planet, but she learned from them and then used those techniques to create the Bene Gesserit. There's also the organization inside the Dune universe that create Golas. A lot of people are like, maybe Desmond Hart is a Gola, because there's no way you could survive being consumed by a sandworm, and how could he be here if he was dead? Really, the best guess in that case would be that he is a Gola. Like, he did die, he didn't survive, and a Gola is like the Dune universe version of a clone that has all the genetic memories of the original. So the idea is that the original Desmond Hart could have died, you create a Gola of him that just remembers everything that the original Desmond remembered. So if we're talking about theory crafting here, I think the best one right now is that he's some sort of combination of a Gola with the Sorceresses of Rossak abilities of telekinesis and burning people telekinetically like this. That might be why he's touching his temples each time he burns someone and you hear that buzzing sound in his head. But after this episode, I also think that there's somebody else that's helping him from inside the Bene Gesserit on their home planet, inside their fortress. So it's not like Desmond is burning people telepathically across the entire universe. I think that there's somebody helping him inside the Bene Gesserit. Then when the Acolytes here are talking about the lengths that Bene Gesserit go to, sacrificing themselves in the name of their grand plans, the level of devotion in their order, I think this is setting up this sort of subplot with Sister Jen, who seems like she's very anti-Bene Gesserit. She might wind up being the plant that's working with Desmond to go against the Bene Gesserit. Later in the episode, she spends a lot of time trying to convince Lila that the Bene Gesserit don't care about her at all. Like, she speaks out against them a lot. Like, why would you be here wanting to be a Bene Gesserit if you seem like you hate them so much? Maybe it's because she's here as a plant trying to take them down from the inside. My early theory after that last scene with her is that she's actually the person who burned Kasha. It wasn't Desmond across the universe. It was somebody inside the compound, and if she's the plant, then it was probably her. Valia takes off for Seleucus Secundus after they learn the boy was also killed in the same way that Kasha was. He was so critical to their plot, they incorrectly assume that this is the burning truth, end of days prophecy that Mother Rakella spoke of. Like I said, really the prophecy is meant to be for Leto II, which is way late, like more than 10,000 years in the future. There are a couple moments like that where they're trying to reinterpret the prophecy this episode, where there are a lot of double meanings, where like it could be people on the show right now, or it also could be Paul Atreides, Leto II Atreides. We'll get to that. If you watched any of my Game of Thrones videos or House of the Dragon videos, misinterpreting prophecy is just the name of the game when you come to like real big epic series like this. Valia explains the plan to give Lila their version of the Water of Life so that she can unlock the genetic memory and gain access to Raquel's memories, and they can get instant replay on that prophecy as many times as they want to try and figure out what's going on. They allude to the fact that Lila's going to learn the truth of the fact that they killed her mother, Dorothea, and didn't tell her about it, which she eventually does. Like, Dorothea eventually tries to gain control of Lila's body. Sister Theodosia goes to Salusa Secundus with Valia. She says something about her unique circumstances, but they never fully explain what those are during the episode. Back at the Imperial Palace, they sort of set up the relationship between Constantine and the Richese woman who's basically his daughter, the kid's older brother. This whole scene gave me vibes of Game of Thrones with Jaime and Cersei getting it on over Joffrey's dead body. Like the two of them could not wait to just go off somewhere and screw. Part of this whole scene is also to set up the Duke's threats and using Desmond to get rid of him. They waste no time in having Desmond admit to what he did, like, oh, you asked me to kill the boy, like you said you wanted out of this marriage, so I took care of it for you. They throw him in their cells, which they call the suspensor cells, because he is, wait for it, suspended in the air. Part of the joke here, too, is that Desmond's abilities are telekinetic, so like he doesn't need his hands or his feet running around to actually kill people. So putting him in the middle of the air here does nothing. Constantine and Lady Richese, the younger, get it on outside the palace. Her comment about his powers of sex transcending time and space also seems like a bit of a reference at the Kwisatz Haderach's powers. Power beyond time and space, like they're having mind-bending, space-warping good sex. She explains her history with her family, like she never knew her dead brother, didn't really care about him that much because their father kept them on different planets. They do a whole bunch of spice bumps. That's what they're snorting here. Spice is used as a drug in the Dune universe. She starts talking about the real power in the universe lying with Arrakis because the spice must flow. It's the most valuable commodity in the universe, so he who controls Arrakis controls the universe. They use this to set up Richese learning that Desmond is the person who killed his son. Then I love when she makes him do another bump, putting him into a spice-induced pleasure coma, only good for boning. Not a bad way to go out at the end of the night. They use this scene of the Emperor discussing Desmond and his abilities with the Empress to set up her trying to hijack him and use him to get rid of both the Bene Gesserit and get rid of the Richeses. Remember, the Empress hates the Bene Gesserit, and she senses that Desmond also hates the Bene Gesserit, so she's like, I sense an opportunity here. 2 birds with 1 stone. We get our fleet, and we get rid of the Bene Gesserit. Back at the Bene Gesserit compound, Lila gets the story about the machine wars and the history of this other girl's family and the Butlers. So the Butlers are actually House Carino, the Emperor's family. They changed their name after the end of the war because the final battle that they won was on the planet Corrin. They call it the Battle of Corrin, so they changed their name to Carino. In the books, the machine wars are actually called the Butlerian Jihad because the name of their family were the Butlers. When she mentions Rhaena Butler in the books, she was the niece of the first emperor after the war. She started this anti-thinking machine movement that eventually led to the Butlerian Jihad, like this big sweeping movement, but she had to sacrifice herself, become a martyr to do that. She mentions they use pulse atomics to defeat the thinking machines in the end. Those are the Dune universe version of nuclear weapons. Really big subplot during the Dune Part 2 movie when Paul Atreides threatened to use his atomics on the spice fields in Arrakis, completely wiping them out. Way back after the machine wars ended, the Landsraad, all the great houses, signed an armistice to never use nuclear weapons ever again. But instead of destroying them, all the great houses never trusted each other, so nobody ever actually destroyed their atomics. They just hid them, which they got into during the Dune Part 2 movie. Like, these should have been destroyed 10,000 years ago, but our ancestors, like the ancient dukes of our line, just continue to keep them stockpiled. But even though that makes House Atreides seem kind of shady, all the great houses kept all their atomics. Like, it wasn't just the Atreides, everybody did this. They referenced the poison that they're going to give Lila, the Rossak poison. Like I said, their technique here is devised from the Sorceresses of Rossak because that's where Raquel learned all their techniques. Like I said, this is kind of why I think that Desmond Hart might have some connection to that group. Then we get a really good look at a Spacing Guild ship. This gives you a good sense of the scale, too, with the Bene Gesserit ship, like really tiny flying out of the opening here. You have to keep in mind that the Spacing Guild ships are designed to house entire fleets and transport them across the universe. So it'd be like a bunch of Star Destroyers flying inside the Death Star, and then the Death Star transporting itself across the universe. Valia shows up in court, and you see what the truth-saying ability looks like when she detects that the Emperor is lying about Desmond Hart. Then the Emperor and the Empress learn that Kasha died the same way that the Duke's son died, and they also realize that means that Desmond Hart killed both of them, or they think that Desmond Hart killed both of them. Like I said, I think that's meant to be a misdirect, and Desmond didn't kill Kasha. It was somebody else inside the Bene Gesserit that was there on that planet that killed her. We see the princess lose it, and then use some of the Bene Gesserit training that Kasha gave her to calm herself down. And they really get into this episode what her backstory is with the Sisterhood and why she trusts them so much. Part of the idea is they want to make it feel right now like the princess is totally loyal to the Bene Gesserit. The reason why she's so critical to the Bene Gesserit's long-term plan is because they want to put a Bene Gesserit on the throne, like a full Reverend Mother, fully loyal to the Order, that is controlling whoever the Emperor is, also sitting on the throne, like the most powerful you could possibly be without actually being the Emperor yourself. And because of the rules of who's allowed to inherit what inside the Dune universe, particularly with the Imperial throne, she has to be engaged to someone in order for that to happen. So even though she begs Valia to take her back to the Bene Gesserit and start her training now, the reason why Valia can't do that is because first she needs the Emperor's approval to do that, and second she also needs the princess to get engaged to someone else from another great house so they can secure that line, secure the throne. The princess won't be allowed to inherit the throne unless she's betrothed to someone. They don't really get into it in the Dune movies, but like Irulan, for instance, couldn't inherit the throne by herself, unwed. There's a bit of a funny reference to the history of the Dune universe too. Theodosia talks about the times when they actually used wood pulp. That's basically paper. She's basically saying that way back in ancient times when we used to use paper. Meaning that in present day, most people, if not anybody, actually uses real paper. There are a couple scenes here too where the princess gets really inquisitive about what happened to Kasha and seems like she might start doing her own detective Sherlock work. Valia faces off against Desmond trying to interrogate him. Notice how he never blinks when she's staring into his eyes, but the minute she walks around back and breaks his gaze, he starts blinking like crazy. This probably gets into him blocking some of her abilities because, for instance, later in the episode, the voice doesn't work on him because he's probably been trained in Bene Gesserit ways. When he says he's originally from Belus, that's actually one of the places the ancestors of the Fremen visited when they were migrating across the universe. There were a reference to the Wanderers in last week's episode. That's that same group that eventually evolved into the Fremen, so the idea is that Desmond has this biological connection to the Fremen. This is also why she says his home planet is a harsh world for a child. It's meant to give you vibes of Arrakis, which is also a very harsh world for a child to grow up on. He freely admits, in front of everyone here, to actually killing the boy. Notice how much he hates the Bene Gesserit and Kasha too, calling her unworthy, like he spits it in her face how unworthy she was. It seems like her truth-saying also does not work on him. If the voice doesn't work on him, then truth-saying also probably doesn't work that well on him, because as she says, he believes he's telling the truth. And I think the idea is that also meant to be true, like Desmond is not lying to them about anything. That would actually be the best way to fight the sister's truth-saying ability, is to only tell the truth. He doesn't actually outright say who he's working for, he just says he serves the Imperium, but that's a very, very vague statement. It's like saying you serve justice, and what does that really mean? Like, whose justice do you serve? Who decided what justice is? And because the Bene Gesserit are the ones that are controlling this rebellion against the Lanstrad, I don't think he's connected to the rebellion. Desmond starts to undermine the sisterhood in front of the Emperor, and it seems kind of like it's working, and the Empress is eating it all up. Like, look how happy she is. Like, I found my guy. He's my guy. He's going to take care of all my problems. There's a little Easter egg here, too. You see Valia using one of the cones of silence to talk to Richese's Bene Gesserit. They're used in the Dune movies. It's like an electronic field. That's exactly what it looks like, a cone of silence. Zemia that she mentions is just the main city in Seleucus Secundus where she goes to get the information from the other Bene Gesserit who's secretly working as the bartender with the spice eyes. We get that longer scene of Sister Jen trying to talk Lila out of undergoing the agony ceremony and saying a lot against the Bene Gesserit. Like, a lot of her conversation here is very anti-Bene Gesserit, which is why I think that she might be the secret plant working with Desmond. Maybe she's the person who actually killed Kasha. That was why in episode 1, Lila was getting all the weird vibes from her, like, what you're saying isn't totally true, but it's also not a lie, so it's like she's hiding something. I think the fact that she is secretly a plant inside the Bene Gesserit. Kieran Atriedes gets scans of the entire interior of the palace for the resistance group, which we find out that he's working for. We learn their group is meant to be an anti-Landstrahd group that's trying to take down the Emperor to send a message to the rest of the great houses who are hoarding spice, basically hurting the common working person. Sort of like a class war kind of situation. But remember, the reveal here is that the Bene Gesserit are really pulling those strings, so really it's the Bene Gesserit putting both hands on both sides of the scale. Like, they're the ones that are trying to help the Emperor and also hurt him at the same time. Just more reminders that the Bene Gesserit have infiltrated all aspects of society and all major groups. When Kieran Atriedes shows up, the way they're pitching this, like I said, is the fact that he's rebelling against his family joining this group. House Atreides itself isn't inherently bad or trying to go against the rest of the Landstrahd or anything like that. He's doing this on his own. But at least the way they're putting it, he believes that he's doing the righteous thing, like he's trying to take down the man, quote-unquote, as in the other great houses, like bring them to heel and trying to help all the regular people in the universe. So at least on the surface, it sounds like he's trying to do a good thing, but I think what they're setting up is a big fight between him and the princess, because they want to show that the princess also has a lot of secret Bene Gesserit skills on her own. Later, she also calls off their little tryst that they have going on between the two of them, so it just might come to blows eventually when he's forced to eventually move against the Emperor. There's a very big lore dump from the Dune books during their conversation here too, when his partner mentions Vorian Atreides. So if you haven't read the Frank Herbert Dune prequel books, this is all stuff that takes place back earlier in the timeline during the Machine Wars and like right after the Machine Wars. Vorian Atreides was the mythical Atreides who formed their house. He was the first person to ever take the name Atreides. He was the son of the Titan general Agamemnon. The Titans were humans who eventually rose up to become overlords over the universe in a bad way. Some of them converted themselves into cybernetic beings like we saw here during the Machine Wars, like the things on walkers with human brains. The reason why humans turned themselves into cybernetic beings is so they could live forever, rule forever, but eventually the AI consciousness called Ominous took over the universe and took over the Titans. Vorian Atreides rebelled against his father to help humans defeat the machines. So that's why in this scene they call him a legend of the Machine Wars. But it doesn't stop there, like Vorian Atreides is a really big figure in the history of the books. He's the same Atreides that accused the Baron Harkonnen at that time of betraying humanity, which got them disgraced and banished to Lengthvale. Valia swore revenge against him, tried to kill him, and the reason why he continues to live way longer than normal human is because he had his lifespan extended, so like he just keeps going and going. Meaning that he could still be alive during the events on the TV show right now. Vorian Atreides is also the person who recruited Mother Rakella into the war effort to begin with, getting her involved in what would eventually lead to the creation of the Bene Gesserit. Later in his life, he got involved on Arrakis and then eventually fakes his own death so that the rest of House Atreides thinks that he's dead and gone, and then he starts a new life. So that's why you may have seen some people theorizing that Desmond Hart might be a version of Vorian Atreides. They talk about trying to assassinate the Emperor. We'll see how that goes down. Like I said, they probably will not be successful because we've seen the movies later in the timeline. The Corrinos still control the Imperial throne 10,000 years in the future. Tula gives Lila her most precious keepsake as a child. It's a tooth. I don't know what kind of animal tooth this is, but it probably comes from their home planet, Lankville, right now. We go there next week, so we'll get some more flashbacks to young Tula and young Valia as well. She lies to Lila, saying that her mother died in childbirth, but we know that her mother was Dorothea and she died because Valia killed her. Valia then reveals that it was the Bene Gesserit who were behind the attack on Arrakis that Desmond was complaining about when he said that there was a plot coming from within the Empire. Like, no, it wasn't the Fremen that attacked the convoy, it was people inside the Empire. This also might be a comp to the plot against Leto Atreides during the first Dune movie when the Harkonnens go after him on the orders of the Emperor, when really Mohiam actually said that it was her who originally had the idea and just made the Emperor think that it was his idea to send the Harkonnens against the Atreides. Just the idea that if there's any big plot against any big organization in the universe, the Bene Gesserit are probably connected to it in some way. Valia wants to give up the names of the people they used in that attack to make the Emperor think that they're more useful in getting information for him, rely on the Bene Gesserit more, and they're going to give up Kieran Atreides first, so bad news for him. There's another Paul Atreides wink here too, when she says if killing the Atreides will pose an issue, and Valia looks off in the distance and then smiles and says, no, it'll be fine. More references to their genetic breeding program, the Kwisatz Haderach, Paul Atreides in the future, the idea that they might need a male Atriedes to carry on the line, but it can be any male Atreides, and Kieran Atreides here doesn't sound like he's from the books. I'm not sure if he's from the books, but the idea is that if he has brothers, then he could totally die and the line would be fine. So Valia's saying, I got plenty of Atreides where he came from, kill him all you want. Speaking of Bene Gesserit plots, the princess tells Kieran Atreides the full backstory of how the Bene Gesserit saved her, and it kind of sounds like they were the perpetrators of this whole grand plot. She says as a child, a bunch of rebels kidnapped her and the Bene Gesserit saved her, but I think we're all probably in agreement that the Bene Gesserit probably orchestrated that kidnapping so that the princess would be reliant on them long term and would want to eventually join the Bene Gesserit order. Then the Empress flat out asks Desmond to kill Duke Richese, or at least get rid of him, and take care of the Bene Gesserit too. 2 birds, 1 stone. While that gets started, we see Lila's transformation process here taking the agony ceremony. When they say her foremothers will wake hungry, wild, don't let them sway you, the idea is that these previous memories, the minds of her female ancestors, might want to take over her waking mind, which almost happens during the episode. They might get into this in Dune Part 3 in the movies with Paul's sister, just because she's called the Abomination in the books, because she is corrupted by a previous mind that she has access to. No spoilers about who that mind is, but if you've read the books, you know. Like, if you know, you know. Just the idea that the people inside them, like these genetic memories, can take over their bodies. She takes the poison, and you start to see it work on her body, like they try to visualize it in a way that the movies haven't done before. You see it interacting with her red blood cells, the synapses in her brain. She goes into the vision, and they visualize her meeting with the consciousnesses of her female ancestors. Remember, these are just the female ancestors. This exact same thing would be happening to Paul Atreides when he takes the water of life. The difference with him is that he gains access to the genetic memories and abilities of all his male ancestors on top of the female ancestors. But the way they visualize this, she's inside of tomb, all these different remains, like all the skeletons, belong to all of her female ancestors going back tens of thousands of years or more, like every single one of her female ancestors. All the whispers you hear in her mind are those female ancestors. You hear it from several other characters in the episode, like Valia hears whispers. Those are her female ancestors she hears. Tula hears whispers. Those are her female ancestors. They be the same female ancestors because Tula and Valia are sisters, so they have the same female ancestors. They overtake her, and the way they play this scene, they make it seem like she actually does contact her great-grandmother Raquella, when really, wait for it, it's actually her mother, Dorothea, who's trying to get back at the sisters for killing her. But there is a brief moment where they do recite part of the prophecy. She says the key to the reckoning is one born twice, one in blood, one in spice. So some of you probably sense the double meaning here. It's both a reference to Desmond on the show, like very obviously, but also a reference to Paul Atreides and Leto II. Desmond was born twice. He talks about being born again after being consumed by the sandworm. Paul Atreides died briefly when he took the water of life. It was Chani's tear that brought him back, and he was reborn in a sense as Muad'Dib. Leto II was born a man, like the regular way, born in blood, then reborn when he became part sandworm and became the true Kwisatz Haderach. Then we actually see Dorothea revealing herself, briefly taking over Lila's body, calling out Tula and the other sisters for killing her, and making it seem like she's going to kill her daughter Lila, or at least put her into a perma-coma so that she won't be able to help the sisters. I think we're expecting Lila to eventually prevail, like eventually she'll come out of the coma. Then the Emperor, back on Salusa Secundus, gets on board with Desmond going after Richese, like, why don't you take care of this problem? It's probably him listening to his wife, and is really his wife's plan. Desmond starts to slow roast the Duke until the Emperor stops him under the condition that he leave the fleet that he promised and never take issue with the Emperor again. Notice when this is happening, he touches his temple again, and you hear more of an overt buzzing sound going on in his head. Is probably just how his telekinetic powers work. Later when she comes back, Valia hears the whispers of her female ancestors again. The same thing, like I said, happens to Tula earlier in the episode. It's the same for all Reverend Mothers. Desmond then throws the gauntlet very overtly to her, basically telling her, you're out, the Bene Gesserit are out, don't show your faces around here anymore, don't let the door hit your ass on the way out. She tries to use the voice on him, but it doesn't work, meaning that he's probably been trained in the Bene Gesserit ways the way that Jessica trained Paul. This is why I think the idea is that either he's been trained by an actual Bene Gesserit who's rebelled against their order, or he's been trained by the Sorceresses of Rossak who have telekinetic powers like the ones that he's used to burn people. So everyone post all your Desmond theories in the comments below. Where does he come from? Who is he really? And who gave him these powers? There's a bunch of Easter eggs and references in the episode, so if there's any you spotted that I didn't talk about in the video, just write them below in the comments. In my full episode 3 video we'll post next week, just like normal. Gonna get a big deep dive into Harkonnens during this part of the timeline next week. Everybody click here for that video. I'll update the link as soon as I post it, and click here for all my Dune episodes. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.